Okay, welcome to the New Labor Movement Show. I am your host, Troy.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Ian.
It took me a second. We are here to go over
Action.
another week
Action.
of local law, labor, and politics. So, like I said, it was more difficult than we thought to actually get a concise list of what each candidate discusses and what they want to go on as far as their policies. So now that the debates are here, we actually have something that we can go off of. So we decided to go off of some of the debates that happened this past week that were viewed on New York One.
Spectrum.
Okay, now before we even start discussing the debates, one of the great things I would like to mention that we happened on the debates, we reached out to the candidates that were running for off in these races, and we spoke to them about our strike and what we're going through. A lot of them know already and know some of the bad things that Spectrum Cable has been doing throughout the city. Spectrum Cable, who took over Spectrum News, and we asked them, all right, we just reached our 3-year mark of our strike, and Spectrum Cable is the one that we're fighting against. We know Spectrum News used to be New York One. It used to be just about New York One and New York News, but they kind of represent now. They show the brand of Spectrum Cable. And since you're going on there, will you wear a button showing support for our strike while on the debate? Of all the candidates running, some of them actually took a stand and decided to say, yeah, I'll wear your button supporting your strike on their show.
Some of them did. It was nice. It was nice to see some love.
I don't know about you, but to me, I think that's a nice gangster stance to, I'm gonna go in and support the union that's that you're trying to crush on the show
By the way, I noticed in all of them that no one asked, like, hey, what's that pin on you? Like, you can tell he almost went out of the way to not, like that. Hi there. Like, hi there.
Yeah, I saw a lot of like crop edits, like, what is this? Let's just block this out.
By the way, they saw that, like they kept doing it. They kept doing the bottom like this and like here.
Words
They
was
changed
right.
that, like they changed that a couple times during the debate.
Oh yeah, the words right to where that orange button was. You could barely see it.
We could have did a shine a light episode just on that alone. Like,
it was normally you see it's like here, but then it was like up in the middle. They had little below. They really were trying like like a producer in the ear. A little higher,
man.
little higher.
So we definitely wanted to say thank you. We definitely wanted to say thank you to the elected officials who did, at least
make it thicker,
who did take a stance and actually wear the button. All right. So now, that being said, we want to talk about some of the things that were talked about on the debates, because after all of that, it really still comes down to the issues. But my thought is, and you tell me if you see any different, guys, as far as talking about the candidates on debate, and this is what me and Ray talked about in some earlier shows, just wearing a button alone or doing doesn't mean that you still don't have to pay attention to the issues, but it does help me, as far as I'm concerned, narrow the field. Because my thing is, especially if you a person that say that you support, especially in New York, support union values and the working people and making sure corporations don't, hurt the city and hurt people. For you to not take a stance to show that support because it might be a little uncomfortable or doing the uncomfortable thing, to me, it puts you in, okay, I see you're willing to do the uncomfortable, I know you're willing to fight for what you say you're willing to fight for. And if not, then I kind of eliminate you at that point. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. You eliminate them immediately because they show no regard for the union. They are not, and I absolutely, if you're not willing to stand up for the union that the people that are going to vote for you, then what are you going to stand for? What are you there for? Why are you not helping us? You need to show some sort of support for us, at least in the beginning. Let us know.
Right.
I also think in a town like New York, you know what I noticed about all the debates? You saw there was like an incumbent kind of like, not even, I wouldn't say an incumbent. There was like a person who was the establishment candidate.
Yeah.
Right. They were more towards the middle, this, and then you had one who was really kind of way out there, and you had someone who was kind of, you know, in the middle. Yeah. And it so happened that one of them was, one time the incumbent was the establishment, one time the one who I thought was kind of wacky was the candidate with the incumbent, and one time the actual person who was, you know, very far left, you know, who was like the new, you know, socialist, for lack of a better word, they were the candidate. So, but you could tell within like 5 minutes, you could tell who was who.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's go over all of them. Now let's get into some of the actual issues from the debate. So let's start first with the 9th district. So as far as the 9th district, the people that I guess we're going to discuss on this show, the people, the two that actually took the stance and actually tried to show support for us were one, Representative Yvette Clark, who is the incumbent, and then there was a challenger run against her, Adem Bodeyeko.
Yes.
They had the opening statements, skip the opening statements. I just wanted to get to some of the issues piece by piece and go over some of the questions they were asked and then what we thought of their answers. One of the questions they were talking about was the city's response to the protest. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
Listen, I like I said, I'm going to be honest, I'm very pro-cop. But that being said, I think the best, I've always said this in any situation when it comes to government, transparency is key. You can, if you're, the electorate can tolerate a big mess up, because we all know mess ups happen. What people get mad at is when you try to pretend it didn't happen, or you lie, or you cover it up. If the police department does something wrong and they say, listen, we did it wrong, this is how it happened, this is what we're doing, you may not agree, but I think everyone will feel better with the transparency.
Yes, but they don't want they don't even want a civilian board to supervise them. They don't want that.
You know what? I know it has to do with the union, which is good, which is a union which is good and which is bad. Because listen, the unions protect their members in any way, shape, or form, and there are going to be a lot of people on these. I mean, look, you got these civilian boards now that want to defund, and I understand that's another whole separate issue. But you definitely can. I don't say I want them to be holden to these review boards, but I don't want them not to have review boards, because if people don't have consequences, then there's no way to change actions.
Listen, I didn't even know that was a thing where that they were able to basically hide their disciplinary record from the public. I didn't know that was a thing.
That really surprised me. I thought at least someone knew. I didn't know that they could hide it completely, leave this job and go to another job, and it wouldn't be know about it.
Right.
I had no idea.
You know what that's about? That's twofold, because I think that obviously there's a union aspect to it, and I also think there's a liability factor to it. I think that a lot of times you find that a lot of these state and local municipalities, they don't want that information out there because, they may be liable, wrong or right, for the cops' actions or the fireman's action. Or think about it. I'm sure all these unions have this. Like you can't look up a fireman. A lot of firemen do a lot of stupid things too. A lot of sanitation workers, obviously maybe not in the same scope, but you can't find any of these things out because it opens up liability for the municipality. For some guy, if some guy driving a garbage truck starts plowing people over because he loses it, they want that hidden because they don't want to pay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If that's your liability. If you have somebody on the job who's been known to do crash trucks or something like that, then you're supposed to not have them in the field anymore. You have them. Yeah.
I think the unions, unfortunately, in general, face a big problem where there's a perception that we protect our guys no matter what. No matter what. Even guys we know are bad apples. Think about it. everyone in this conversation knew that there was at least 3 or 4 guys we used to work with on the other side who probably deserved to be fired, who weren't. And because we had to keep them, kind of hurt the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you know how these companies work. The minute you give them one little thing, then they're going to start shredding people left and right. And that's the balance of what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to give an inch, because once you give an inch, then they're gonna, instead of it being 1 person a year, it's gonna be 10 people a year.
But in the case of shooting and killing innocent people,
I agree. Listen, it's the same, but it's completely different. It's the same principle, but the repercussions obviously are much, much greater. I think you have to make it easier to discipline police officers. I do. Because trust me, there's 99, there's 100 guys in a precinct. They all know who the guys are and who they aren't. Just like we all know who the guys are. Most of those guys are like, I just love to get rid of these guys, but you can't, because the union won't let you. And I think the union's not bad. It's doing its job.
All right, guys. So right now I'm going to go through some of the questions from the candidates. We could just hear them. I'm going to play it real quick. You guys will be able to hear it, and we'll just talk about their responses if we want to.
Mayor, so we've had a series of protests over the course of the last couple of days as a result of the killing of George Floyd. But this city has been through much when it comes to police shootings. As a Black male who's grown up here in this city, I have expected leadership time and time again to step up, and time again, leadership has disappointed. Yeah, I thought your comments on Saturday were disgraceful, to be quite frank, that you would tell folks that protesters who were engaging in acts of civil disobedience, that police officers were driving their vehicles straight into them, instead of obviously acting and trying to bring down the situation. That's not the leadership that we expect. And it's not the leadership we expect from anyone here in terms of public service. We've got folks in Washington who are already failing us. We've got folks, a racist White House that is fanning the flames. I don't believe if we're going to make a difference in terms of being able to turn around a culture of policing that has far too often been painfully brutal and fatal to Black people across this city and across this country, that we are going to demand way more than simply just saying, be calm or go home or have a curfew.
I have confronted the mayor directly on this issue, and I really believe that, there's been a lot touted about de-escalation, but we've yet to see it implemented. We've yet to see that happen. And unfortunately, as a result of the lack of tactical, and strategic thinking and deployment in our city, we have seen a couple of dynamics happen. Yes, we are having peaceful protests, but we are also having agent provocateurs. We are seeing looting. We are seeing violence. And so how do you thread that needle? I believe that the curfew is in order. And I believe it's in order because I believe that if you truly want to be about change, we need to be organizing. We need to take the time to, yes, be in the streets and protest, but we cannot have our protests co-opted by outsiders with other agendas.
She did stress the point that they're outside people that's causing most of the riots. That's
right. In other words, it doesn't, if you're out there and you're heated and some person who knows what they're doing sees a bunch of young teenagers and goes, man, it'd be great if we had all those blah, 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 blah. It's easy to insert. Yes, I'm sure there are some locals doing the damage, but they're not the ones showing up with crowbars and bricks and everything like that. These people are being facilitated by people who know what they're doing.
I mean, you the gang. However, a gang leads you follow the gang. If the gang is doing something and you're down with the gang, your gang will pull you towards it, no matter what it is. If it's going over a cliff, sometimes you go over the cliff with that gang. You're dumb enough to follow that. Sometimes you end up with following the gang.
I'll tell you what you can tell. It's like any situation. You can tell she's done this before. Not only debate, but she's actually been in government. She's actually done stuff. Now,
sometimes that hurts you.
What? No. Again, it depends what the electorate's looking for. Sometimes the electorate is like, you know what, same old isn't going to cut it, and you got to go. I think in this particular thing, where she is down there in Brooklyn, I think she's, from what I can tell, she's done the community well. She's won a couple of re-elections. The guy I just thought was just a little too, like you said, really pandering to the crowd. Really,
he couldn't hit her with anything that really showed that she was, like deficient in any type of way. Like, and if you're gonna beat the champ, you got to beat the champ.
No, right. If you're gonna beat, you got to knock the champ out. He didn't have one knockout punch. It was more like, basically, like I said, he's like, listen, she's old and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Come follow me. I'm the new way. Yeah. I don't think he made a convincing enough a case, because she just seemed like she was like, no matter how many times he peppered her, she was like, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. Right?
Bubble weed, baby.
Listen, everybody. If you're looking at the issues, that's one thing. But if you're judging it just on this debate, then yeah, definitely was. I saw that.
She definitely was like, she knew, she knew how to take it down, and just a not. And you know how you could tell both of those guys were answering the questions on her terms. She kind of set the tone. Yeah. And once you follow someone else, it's hard to win these debates.
Let's take a quick look at their lightning round, because at least that was back and forth. We can get a couple of their views on different things.
If elected, would you vote for Nancy Pelosi to continue as Speaker of the House?
Absolutely.
Irrelevant.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Boncadeco?
Depends on who the choices are.
I like his answer best for that.
Mr. Boncadeco, should taxes be raised on families making more than $500,000 a year?
Yes.
Crowd answer.
No.
Back when the Democratic field was more crowded, who was your first choice for president?
I had not selected a candidate.
Mr. Boncadeco?
Warren.
Mr. Boncadeco, should the act of making accusations against black men, as we recently saw in Central Park, be treated as a hate crime?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Do you feel that yeshivas have been unfairly targeted? Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Boncadeco?
Yes.
Do you support a cut to the police budget? That is a current issue.
If it means keeping schools open for our poorest Black and brown children, yes.
Absolutely. They need to be able to use 21st century tactics and strategies in order to police people. And if we're talking about de-escalation, which is at the cornerstone of what they do.
Lightning.
Sorry about that.
You never voted for somebody who was not a Democrat?
No.
Irrelevant.
Ms. Clark?
No.
Mr. Boncadeco?
No.
Oh. Thank you, candidates. Let's talk about housing. Advocates in your district have called.
All right. So, I mean, a couple of those were irrelevant. I like the question on some of them you could hear the pandering to, you want to pander to the audience, and some of them were straightforward. But I think,
like I said, I'm not for cutting police budgets, and I'll tell you why. Because in nature, just like in human beings, once you create a power vacuum, whoever's gonna, if the police can't police, it's gonna create a power vacuum. Like crime and power and force is not gonna go away.
Wait. We're gonna start going into raise values. We're gonna be here all night. Let's stick to the candidates.
No, not raise values.
Let's stick to the candidates.
I thought the people who said cutting police budgets were pandering. I don't think you cut the. I mean, listen, you can keep it the same, but I don't think you should cut it. I think when you're cutting $1 billion, $1 billion, that's like a 20% cut. That's a deep cut.
Listen, my first gut reaction when I hear cut police budgets is no. But then I'm also willing to listen, because I don't know how much the police budget is and how much it might be bloated. So give me your argument and I listen.
Right. Listen, same here. If you can prove there's waste, then 100%. But yeah, right. If you're telling me,
but
yes
not
or no,
as a reaction to what's going on. No.
Yes or no, I have to say no. But if you're going to tell me I can prove there's $1 billion worth of waste because of overtime or whatever, then all right, I'm willing to listen to you. But if you're just going to say yes or no, I'm going to be no.
Right.
There has to be room to cut, because we need social things for the Black and brown community that they are policing. that they can start there. If we're gonna pander, at least we can pander by giving the community some more money from the police department. That would be a nice pander.
I can't see that. If they show me that the police budget is in a state where cutting from it is going to reduce services that the police do right now, then I'm going to say no. You have to find that money somewhere else. But it's not just to say cut the police budget because it's the police. No, if the police budget is where it's at and it needs to be in place, then I don't see cutting it. But if you can show me where there's waste, then of course, yeah.
Right.
I think we all agree there.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go on to the next race. All right, so this one got into it. So let's talk about also now again. We reached out to the candidates and asked all of them to wear the button supporting the strike. All of them know we're on strike. All of them know it's 3 years. Out of all that we asked, there were only 2 candidates that took it upon the responsibility to actually wear the button on their show. One of them I wanted to speak out in particular. Mr. Miranda is newer to the race as far as we know. We haven't reached out to him until he started reaching for Queens Borough President. We were getting to him in a short space of time before he actually had to go on air. What decision he made to wear the button was on him between that space of time. One of the others that I did want to talk about, though, is Donovan Richards. With Donovan Richards, who we have been reaching out to multiple times now for rallies, for different events to try to come to. Not only did he not say no, he's not even bothered to respond. So when you could take it to a point where you know that you claim, especially if you claim to support unions, you know there's a company in the city that's not only not negotiating fairly, after unions with a point you're trying to union bust in New York City. And for you not even to take out the respect to just answer and even say no to a question you're being asked to answer at all, that on top of not doing something as simple as wearing a button when you're supposed to be, I guess, one of the more established candidates who claim to support unions and other people doing it, that kind of, to me, that eliminates you because if you're not willing to take a stance with something what might be, I guess, uncomfortable for you, then how can I count on you to take a stance to fight for me for something else that's going to be hard?
I'm even going to take it a level further.
Go.
I think there's a lot of people who work at Spectrum who probably live in who are his constituents.
Absolutely.
That's one. 2, I would say at least half of our division of our local looks just like he does. And maybe, so you would think that's strike 2. And number 3, like you said, he's pro-union. So how are you going to be a pro-union black candidate who's not going to take advantage, who's not going to support a union shop that is predominantly minority and is in your district, and a ton of people live in your district? I mean, that is like arrogant, and to put it in layman's terms.
And this wasn't a big ask.
I haven't overstepped, but I mean, I think you put those 3 things there. That's a pretty damning argument against him.
Absolutely.
I'm sure both you guys know guys who live in his neighborhood.
Listen, a bunch of our guys are
very
right. A lot of guys come from his district. A lot of guys.
Yeah. He's got to do better. I memean, it's too late for us to even support him. I wouldn't support him for anything right now because of the fact that he didn't give us a chance to say yes or no. He didn't even recognize that is problematic for me, big time.
Yeah, I
say bigly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now, and especially with a race that's like how we have now, there's not going to be a lot of people coming out for this race. Presidential election is not even part of it anymore. So people are coming out just for the local races. And we have so many people that live in Queens and so many of our people, not only in Queens, in his district. And we have all friends and family that do it. I mean, all friends and family that vote. And the thing about it is, it's not just the button. And the button was simple. I mean, like, now that's one of the more simple things you could do.
Let me ask you this. Do you think he took it personal? Because I think Local 3, didn't they endorse
Crowley?
Yeah, but I could see that. So if that's the case, so let's say 2 things. One, So that means if the union endorses another candidate, that means you no longer support unions, because what's happening is not just an attack on us, it's an attack on the way unions are put together altogether. And two,
go ahead.
Even before they endorsed Crowley, what happened to, because I didn't speak on it before as much because I was letting it go, but what happened to the other rallies we invited him to, the other events that he didn't even respond?
If he got on TV and said, listen, I'm wearing this badge, this union didn't even, they endorsed my competitor, but yet I thought it was so important to represent unions, I still wore the pin. Boom. They all think little picture, not big picture.
I just
how many people would he have won over in local 3 right there?
Yeah.
I just don't get it. Yeah. All right. Let's so we're gonna talk about the 2 candidates that were running that actually did wear the button. So that would be Costa Constantidis and Elizabeth Crowley. Elizabeth Crowley, with full disclosure, who is, like you said, endorsed by our local. So let's take a look at some of their answers to some of their questions. Some of these questions were pretty good, so I did want to speak about it. Let's do the lightning round. Let's just go straight to the lightning round.
Lightning round is usually good.
Do we still need cops in the schools, the school safety agents?
Yes.
3, 4, everybody says yes. Okay. Should all healthcare coverage related to coronavirus be free? Mr. Constantinides?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
Yes, and we should get the federal government to pay for it.
Mr. Ginn?
That's what I was saying.
Yes.
Of income taxes on
more
than 500,000 households, I should say.
They asked
making more
each
than
race. They asked this $500,000
a year.
question.
Ms. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Constantinides?
Yes.
Who was your first preference for president of the United States in the Democratic primary?
I like this question.
You like this question?
First choice for president.
Yes.
It shows a philosophy.
Mr. Constantinides?
I really believe we need a progressive in the office. I publicly endorse Elizabeth Warren.
Ms. Crowley?
Kamala Harris.
Who did Crowley say?
Mr. Yen?
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, yeah.
I don't think it's safe enough because of the homelessness and the coronavirus.
Not comfortable. Ms. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Constantinides?
Yes.
Should New York City beaches be reopened for swimming? Mr. Richards?
Irrelevant question.
Mr. Constantinides?
Absolutely. With a really good plan for social distancing, absolutely.
Ms. Crowley?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Should New York City continue to have gifted and talented programs in its?
Yes.
Because you know there was a proposal to make it.
I didn't know that this was not in all schools.
As a specialized program, it would cease to exist. Is that a good idea, Mr. Constantinides?
Yes, and it should be in every neighborhood, every school. We shouldn't be picking and choosing where they are.
Ms. Crowley?
Yes, in every school.
Let's ask, have you ever voted for somebody who was not a Democrat? Mr.
Irrelevant question. To me, this question hurts you more than helps you, because if you're going to tell me, like, oh, I never voted for anyone else, like, that's a good thing. To me, that doesn't show, like, your value. That shows that you are, you have no, like, individual thought.
Mr. Richards?
It shows you're an ideologue.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Democrat.
Well, a pandering question, though.
Thanks so much for joining us.
To vote Democrat.
Well, I don't know. To me, that doesn't make a difference. That doesn't make a difference of how I vote for you if you ever voted for someone other Democrat.
Law enforcement as well as community residents together to speak about the issues that are impacting and how to best be able to serve the things that they need to get done right now. I need to question this. You're talking about police reform and the 58 project, but then 8 years, each of these elected officials had 8 years to create reform. It doesn't take the end of their term when they have nothing left, right? This is their last year, their own term limited out. Now they want to advocate for changes that they could have been pushing long ago. Why haven't they spoken out before now? Why haven't they told us who stopped them from before?
Said the same thing at that board meeting we went to. He's absolutely right.
To give these sound bites and say what you've done today, when you know you don't have an office in a couple of months. That's shameful. What they've been doing from day one. What if all these elected officials have served in the Public Safety Committee? All of them had the capacity and the ability to make these changes. I haven't heard them once advocate for these changes before, and I haven't heard them once say these are the elected officials who stopped us from passing these bills.
So these reforms, a lot of what they're asking for now are not new to this recent case. There have been reforms that have been on the table for a long time, but the city council just failed to pass. So we need to hold elected officials accountable for their failures and not give them more time to do what they haven't done already.
Did you want to respond,
Amen.
Mr. Richards?
Amen.
Yeah, but he got right back at him because he's like, yo, you was in the police for all that time. Why didn't you do something?
All right, thank you, Errol. I mean, we've seen in our community here protests and actions of First Amendment that have been beautiful, that have been powerful, that have been diverse, and that have been peaceful. And I think we need to bring every voice to the table in order to move forward. I've been sickened by the images that we've seen, not just over the past week, but over the last decades. We need to do better. And as the next borough president, it's about bringing our young people to the table. It's about bringing every voice of the diverse borough of Queens. That's why we need to make sure we appoint diverse community boards, have task force, work with people of Queens, work with every corner of the borough so no one feels left out. And we bring all of us together to fight systematic racism, because only when we're working together can we actually accomplish anything.
Okay. Ms. Crowley.
First, let me say I am outraged by the killing of George Floyd. George Floyd's life mattered. Black lives matter. There's systematic racism in our law enforcement. It's true in New York City as it is throughout the country. There's no room, not one little bit of room for any racism in our law enforcement. I read your op-ed yesterday, Errol, earlier this week, about the peaceful way to protest. I support the rights of all New Yorkers and everyone across the country to protest, but I am against the riots. Our communities have been through enough right now, and it's important for us to stay safe and be able to also, at the same time, you know, I believe that the vast majority of our police officers are good, and they're going to work every day to do their job. And so when people are throwing Molotov cocktails and bricks at police officers, it bothers me. And it bothers me to see the looting that's happened because our businesses have struggled so much having to be closed. So first, I want everyone to be safe too. And I think it's important that we practice safety in our protesting. And you know, to answer Anthony Miranda's question, Errol, I was on your program 6 years ago when it wasn't popular to be a reformer. And I stood up and fought for real reforms on Rikers Island, which is a true justice, criminal justice issue that has been plaguing our city, or probably one of the most serious civil rights issues facing our city. And I'm proud of the work that I did in my leadership role as the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee on the City Council.
This debate was kind of, I couldn't really, like, they weren't bringing up any issues that spoke to me that I really wanted to have a clear answer on where you stood or what your issues were. Some of these debates, I don't understand the question into them. Doesn't seem to, it's what's in the headline as opposed to what I want to hear. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, because when I go in and I read the platform for like some of the things that Constantidis has and Elizabeth Crowley has, is much more impactful than the questions they're asking them on these debates. I would love to hear more about that. But then you get to the debate and it's, I don't know. It doesn't.
At the end of the day, they have to get ratings too. And I think in a different world, if there hadn't been the riots and the looting and the protesting, I think the questions would have been much more policy driven. But us three are looking for issues, but you realize that most of the people who are turning in, if they had pretended that the riots and the looting and the protesting had not happened, he ignored it, people would have been up in arms about that too.
I understand that.
Happy.
I understand figuring out what's their position, but then is that all you ask now?
Yeah, well, I guess it's...
Listen, think about it. The current situation with what was going on, and especially when that was on, it was, you know, New York was still, you know, as they say, popping off. It was still, you know, think about it. New York was safe during the day, and at night you didn't want to be around Midtown. So It was a big thing. I think when all three debates went on, I think Friday I think Thursday that one and Friday was the first one. There wasn't there wasn't one at the time. I think the second two there was, because the first time they had a a curfew was like 11 o'clock. Like, I don't know who thought 11 o'clock was going to be a good time. It's not even a good time. By the way, that's not a good curfew time for a teenager, let alone for protesters.
Protesters started, the looters started at 7 o'clock.
Right, what's I'm saying? By 11 o'clock, you're already into shift 2. The wave is coming. You're like you've already dropped off the first car. Now you're coming back for a refill. I mean, at 11 o'clock. Come on.
Ray, I think that the show that we did before, highlighting what each candidate stood for, was more informative than this debate was.
And listen, I think, you know what it is? Like you said, they got to go for ratings. They got to hit the biggest amount of audience. And Errol knows that no matter what, which, by the way, Errol's a shill for Spectrum. He's a shill. He's an awful person. Just put that out there. He's a complete shill. He's a shill. Like when we went after him, he was like, "You union thugs this, you union thugs that." Like, you're in a union too, buddy. You're a broadcaster. Just so you know. But that's another thing. Errol. And but he's got a show, and he's got to cater to the most people. And I'm sure that,
I wonder what really draws the most ratings, because some of the other things that you're talking about, if you're bringing up their issues and they have to go and defend and fight against each issue, to me, them combating each other and having to defend those positions
agreed.
is more exciting than just talking about, yes,
Again.
protests are bad. Everybody's saying the same thing. Yes, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad.
You know what the problem is for some reason, corporate America is infatuated with Twitter, which is like the 10% of the nuttiest people out there. So I'm sure he probably went before, hey, what would you like me to ask on the debates on Twitter? And I'm sure everyone from the Twitter mob said, and that's where he geared the show. Now,
yeah, but that, I don't know. To me, it always seems better.
You and I know, but listen, he wants to, all these guys want, all of them, not just him, all of them want to look good on the, look, I asked the tough question.
That would be the thing to me.
I asked the tough question about the riot on Twitter. Give me some likes, you know.
I don't want to have to defend my policy, because to me, a fight between two people, you're trying to defend what you stand for, you're trying to back this up. A fight back and forth between people is more exciting than everybody saying what you say. When they say, "What do you believe about the protest?" Who's not going to say it's bad? Bad. It's the same answer all across the board.
You knew no one was going to go like this. The cops should do whatever they want. Someone gets that line, slap them around. Even if they felt that, that's never coming out. Never.
Right.
Could you imagine Elizabeth Crowley, not that she would ever do this, saying, man, if the cops got a rough, if they got to break a couple of eggs and make an omelet, they got to do what they got to do. Could you imagine that? Like, I think her screen would just go black right there on the
Nah, her screen wouldn't go black. They'll put her full screen. You know where the ratings are. F the button. Put her on full screen. F the button.
We got a live one. Focus in. Hand in. We got one on the hook. We got it.
Ian, it's funny. You see the button on Costa Castantini's now, right? And you see when they do the close-up, you can only see his neck.
Yes. Like the chyron on the bottom, dude. The chyron on the bottom is only like 2 inches. When they go to him, it's like 9. It's like
hide it.
You would swear he said he had like a shirt that said "kill whatever kill puppies" on.
You can't tell me they didn't.
That show, man.
Tell me they didn't do that on purpose.
No, of course he did.
Okay.
Look, because look at the ones who weren't wearing it. Their names were nice and small. His name is like. Let's use a big font.
All right, let's go on to the last debate.
This one, believe it or not, I was actually, and I couldn't be more diametrically opposed to a politician than her. But I have to admit, out of the 3 of them, she was probably the most polished. And she had the pin, so I gotta give her credit.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, how many times did that woman go?
What did Ray say about this one? What did Ray say about this one?
Gave her a compliment? Oh my God.
Watch, but yeah, just so you know, like when you see the house shoot up in flames, you'll know why. Like that.
Listen, honestly, I looked at this debate. I mean, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close.
No, you know what the problem was? That was the one where the difference of who was so apparent. Like You could tell Ocasio-Cortez she's been in the spotlight. She knows. 2 years ago, she was a knucklehead who caught someone by surprise. But you can tell now she's had 2 years to polish herself up because she knew how to say a whole bunch of nothing and say a whole lot of something.
Get out of here! Was no whole bunch of nothing. You had to try to take a stab, didn't you?
I am.
This was the thing. She was trying to talk about policy and issues, and the funny thing was, you have, especially when you have an incumbent, you have usually a record you could go on to try to smash them about this and smash them about that.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, it was what was a lady named MCC was trying to go after her. She had like nothing. She was trying to go after, it seemed like pre-written taglines to try to attach to her, but it was just like
AOC was MIA. By the way, I didn't mind her too much, and you could clearly tell she was an establishment Democrat who wanted nothing to do, because her whole thing was that, you know, AOC is polarizing.
She's divisive. She's divisive.
Right. All true, but she was so
divisive right now.
But she's like this. She was like, the whole time she said this, AOC is so terrible, and I don't know why. Cough, cough. I mean, it was completely monotone. It was like, oh my God. It was very, and then the other one, the Pagan, I think her name was, I mean, God bless her, but she was so.
She's new.
What? Not I knew, but you could tell, she was, I mean, maybe I'm going to be snippy here. Maybe I'm going to come across as.
Well, you know how you do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, her grammar was driving me crazy. Her grammar was mine.
Well, you can see her first language is probably Spanish.
Well, listen, whatever it was, it's just like, you could tell she wasn't ready for prime time. The other two were at least ready.
Right. Well, and the thing with Khan, you can see is more, she wasn't the polished politician, but she was, she seems like more of an activist where her heart is in the community and stuff. But as far as having a big picture and being able to execute that on a legislative level, I don't know that I would feel comfortable with her with that.
She's a little too popular at the moment for anybody to primary her for the next few years.
No, and
not necessarily. I don't believe so.
No, by the way, in her district, she's going to face a tough primary because a lot of people in her district are not happy with her because she's kind of, like you said, she's so big picture that they feel like they're getting left behind. Whether that's accurate or not, I'm not saying.
I was say, are you? Where you get the
but you know what? But if you notice, last time in that district, it was her and like this, the Crowley's uncle, the one for Queens. She beat her uncle.
Really, I didn't know that.
Right, they're related. That's her uncle, and she beat him. And now you see that people got smart. They said, "Oh, they're going to send the Latina," and then all of a sudden, voila, 3 Latinas running for the same office. Like everyone, you could tell that think about it. She changed the game so much that the people running against her would look just like her. They were like it's like they knew the only way they were going to take her out, they had to look just like her.
Yeah.
Or be in the same vein. Like you couldn't put some, another demographic was not going to get it done because they were that district's looking for what they're looking for.
Right.
Okay, so once again, we're gonna this one is going to be even more narrow because only one of the candidates actually took the stance to put on.
I have to go on record. I have to say thank you, AOC.
Say it again.
Oh, Ian, let's give the guy a hand. Let's give the guy a hand.
Listen, I'm a bigger man. AOC, I dislike every one of your policies, but when push came to shove, you wore the pin, and I want to thank you very much.
We're going to go over the policies.
A gentleman is always gracious.
All right, Ray. Proud of
All right.
Listen, my therapist tells me this is real growth. No.
All right, I just want to go over it real quick. We're going to go over the answer to some of her questions on certain topics then.
Well, she was very polished. You can tell she was like ready for prime time. Very much ready for prime time. Like you could tell it was like for a baseball reference, it was like Like the other two are minor leaguers, and she was like a superstar professional. You could just tell the difference was, they were, it wasn't even close as far as, charisma and everything.
Endorsing Joe Biden. Should there still be a New York primary?
I don't think that it's necessary, but we're going to do it, and I'm glad of it. I have supported Joe Biden from day one, unlike...
This was a big thing. Like, she didn't support him from the beginning. Like, so what?
Party as she is.
By the way, you notice that they try to come like Cortez so much, they all came with 3 names.
Definitely.
Yes,
I didn't hear that.
Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, if reelected, would you vote to have Nancy Pelosi continue as Speaker of the House?
Irrelevant.
Well, that's always...
See, this is what I'm talking about. That's a question you think is a crowd pleaser?
No, but listen, you know why he asked? Because what that does is it lets you know, is she like the one on the bottom, old school, like is she establishment or not?
If elected, would you vote to have Ms. Pelosi continue
That's what he's, I really think that's exactly what he's going for.
No, he was looking for, because that's like a tempting one, because they had a little opposite of opinions in the beginning, so he wanted to see how she would answer that.
He's trying to make a headline. What better headline would there be on his show of, AOC says she won't endorse Pelosi? That's a lovely headline for him. Errol could run with that.
Now the New York City police force in New York City public schools is equal to the Boston entire police department. So I don't think that we should in the level that it is now. Thank you.
Okay. Got it.
See, smiles and she stabs you. I mean,
more than $500,000. Should social media companies be allowed to censor content on their platforms?
Yes, they should.
Ms.
Boo.
Oh.
Carefully, yes.
Boo.
I'm an abolitionist, or I try to be in this flawed world. So I try to avoid jail time. I believe in restorative justice.
I didn't understand this. Isn't looting right now jail time?
What happened?
Isn't looting right now will result in jail? No.
He had to be convicted. What right now? What they're talking about is she's kind of mixing 2 things up with jail time and cashier's bail. Like, in other words, like a lot of those people who get caught looting, they get let out within 20. They have to, under New York State law, they get let out within 24 hours with no bail.
Until they go back to court, though.
When it comes to
Correct.
I think it's important to denote that the reason we haven't been able to secure these capital funds is because we lacked both a House and Senate majority for a very long period of time. And so when we have such a narrow window, we're not able to do that. I am very hopeful, and I'm working my butt off, including being on Vice President Biden's Unity Task Force, to make sure that we get a Democratic majority in both the House, Senate, and that we have a Democratic president. If that's the window, I do believe that we have a shot at getting the capital funds necessary to finally fix this problem. But if that isn't the case, we absolutely need to make sure that we start to look at some other provisions to make sure that we get our issues fully funded and that kids aren't drinking lead in their water.
Right. Okay, Ms. Khan.
All right, so that was about housing. And then this is one thing that we talk about on the show too. When I hate that it has to be a Democratic House and Senate and yada yada to do stuff that everybody should agree on, like providing housing. So my thing more is, I don't care what party it's more about accountability. If there's a bill put forward that will provide housing for people, and there's anybody that's blocking it, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or what else, we should be able to target that person, know what it is, and vote and get them out of office to stop this from happening. But instead, we keep letting blue or red put us through the same cycle again from getting through the basic necessities that we need. And they let those things divide us from getting forward. And I think that that's our fault. I think that's the people's fault.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, we need to find the people, whether they're blue or red, and definitely get rid of them. Definitely call them out. At least call them out. Call them out and see why they didn't do that, and let them explain it. And if they don't have a good explanation, then we try and vote them out.
You know what the problem is too many of these candidates, or you have to be one team or the other, and I'm a huge, big proponent of a third party. That way you have to negotiate more. Because right now, to be a Republican, you have to be pro-life. And to be a Democrat, you have to be against guns. But meanwhile, there's probably there are tons of people out there, nationally, yes. There are tons of people out there, yes. There are tons of people out there, yes. Joe Biden wants to take your AR-15. He said it. There you go. And but listen, that's his position, knock himself out. But there are tons of people out there who would be pro-life and or pro-choice and pro-Second Amendment, or a combination of the two.
Don't conflate the Second Amendment with the AR-15.
No. Again, what I'm saying, my bigger point is that because you have to pick a team based on certain things, think about it. Democrats have to give a lot of Democrats have to give up things they like to be a Democrat, and Republicans have to give up a lot of things they like to be Republicans. But if there was actually someone in the middle, like what do you call it, an independent party, where the guy was basically like, I take some of this and I'll take some of that. Like, think about it. Most Republicans are not pro-union. Most Democrats are. Imagine if you could get someone who was pro-life and pro-union, or you know what I'm saying? If there was more of this instead of.
How about this? If people would just pick what the hell they felt instead of attaching themselves to a party.
Correct. But unfortunately, in a lot of these, because we have a two-party system, there's a gauntlet you have to run to get even to make the race. I mean, Donald Trump is a New York liberal, probably mostly. He was obviously New York. Donald Trump, up until about 2 years before he started, up until he started running. Up until he started running, up until he started running was he was pro-choice.
Wonder why is that?
He saw the light in the people's eyes, and he thought it was this, and then he became pro-life because he knew to win votes in the Republican Party, he had to be pro-life.
All right, let's go into one last thing. I wanted to go into when they started talking about the relief bill, because this was a big thing about how would they have voted on the relief bill. Only one of them actually had the opportunity to do so, and the other two talk about what they would have done if they had the opportunity to vote on it.
One of the interesting dynamics about Congress is that we know when there's going to be if there's one person that's a deciding vote before it meets to the floor. So what I would have done in that situation is that if I were the deciding vote, as I have done previously, is that I would have negotiated for hard improvements to the bill and get those improvements. And yes, I would have supported it.
Okay, and Ms. Cabrera, I have a different hypothetical for you, which is that if you were convinced that the bill had nothing in it that was going to help the constituents, or that a very large swath of the constituents of New York 14 would be excluded, would you still have voted for the bill?
No, but that's not what was at stake.
See, so she just killed herself right there. She said no.
Hospital needed that money.
And this one was funny because her only comeback to try to go against Ms. Cortez was to say that, and this was her theme throughout the entire thing, that she was the only vote against this bill, and she's so divisive, and she's the only one that didn't do it. But when they asked her, okay, if the bill was to exclude all of these areas and the people
said no.
She said no. Oh, right. She asked the same thing. She said, if it was to exclude all these people and exclude all these people, what would you say? She would say, I would say no, but, and immediately went to but. I was like, that was the entire basis of your argument through the entire debate. And you just said, okay, you would have made the same answer. So, like, I don't understand where you could come from with. That's why she got destroyed. That's why she got destroyed.
Now, and when obviously AOC is going to win this, she's going against a Republican in the same district. And this is a woman who originally came from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And now is in the States. I believe she is also a veteran. So we'll see.
I would like to hear her views.
As would I.
But they're going to come from all different angles, right? We're going to try to put it. All right, let's just leave it alone. All right, so I mean, that's it. And once again, like I said, out of all the candidates that were asked, one person was able to take the stance and wear the button. So that's why we only were able to focus on really one of the candidates during this this town hall or this debate.
Yeah, and once again, Spectrum News tried to hide the button.
Yeah, they moved that Chiron around a little bit on her too.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
All right, so that's it for this episode, a bonus episode of the New Labor Movement Show. I am one of your hosts, Troy.
I am still Ray.
And I'm Ian Hagan.
And this is the New Labor Movement Show, signing off.